Live, hey everybody, thank you for joining us for another Free Assange Vigil. This is our 108th week right now. Joining us this evening, we do have Kevin Gosztola, and we may be having Mark jump in a little bit later. We did reschedule with Eleanor mostly because, well, completely because I'm stupid and didn't actually finish talking about the scheduling time, so that was fun. So we'll have her later on in August. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Before we jump in to discuss Daniel Hale's case, I do want to go through the numbers with everyone really fast. We have 3,878 days for illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. We have 842 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked to the Ecuadorian embassy trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy to Belmarsh prison following a $4.2 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund to the nation of Ecuador. We have 205 days since Vanessa Breitzer's January 6 ruling denying Julian Assange bail after personally ordering his release and no extradition in his case. We have 1,435 days of inhumane pretrial detention for the alleged Vault 7 whistleblower Joshua Schultz, and at least 992 of those days have been spent under special administrative measures. We have 481 days since the political persecution of Ola Bini started at the hands of the Ecuadorian government. We have 46 days since Commander X was illegally taken from Mexico and renditioned to the United States. His court trial is scheduled for mid-October. We have, in good news, 49 days since whistleblower Reality Winner was moved into house arrest and is expected to be placed under parole on November 23rd of this year, pending good behavior. We have 495 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning, who still regularly streams to Twitch, XYChelsea87 over there. And we have 144 days of freedom for whistleblower Jeremy Hammond. He still does have a super strict parole, but he's not on any type of penitentiary or halfway house anymore. But with all of that, how are you today, Misty?
I am doing very well, sir. I have mixed emotions today because I thought Daniel Hale was going to get a much harsher sentence than he got, and so I was a little shocked that it was what he did get, which we're going to jump into. But he still has those other 4 charges, so we'll see what happens. But it was a little bit better than I was expecting. I mean, I know Kevin also thought the same thing when I spoke to him on Facts on the Ground the other day. About 7 years was what I was kind of expecting. So, the 45 months was a little shocking, but we still have lots to worry about. Have to stay vigilant. So yeah, but I'm good. I'm doing well. Kevin, how are you doing today? You've had a busy day. You just kept trying to cover this from Chicago.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to stay on top of all of the everything coming out of the courtroom, but also making sure that I put together a lot of information from things that were filed, so people could not only know that he was sentenced 45 months in prison, but also have some understanding of what that number means and the nature of the prosecution. And so that's what we're going to get into here. I'll say before we talk about anything specific from the sentencing hearing that those 4 charges were dismissed. So he's not going to trial, and he's not facing any additional jeopardy. It's he's going to prison, and this is over for the U.S. government. There's nothing more.
Well, that's good news then.
Cool. From Daniel.
Yeah. So is there any chance too that we think that he could potentially get out early? Because I know Reality Winner essentially served almost her entire sentence. Do you think that there's a shot that he could get out before the 45 months is up?
Well, I don't expect him to serve the whole time. So Realities was 63, and I suppose you can argue she's serving the full. Certainly her family argues, as well as her supporters, that she's doing the full time because right now she's on home confinement. Mm-hmm. And there's been coverage of her and the restrictions she's under on home confinement. So it's still a kind of prison. You're not allowed to leave. Also, when you go to places with family that you're authorized, your ankle bracelet can still continuously pulsate, or it kind of reminds you you're not at home right now, and they know you're not at home. It's very creepy. But even though they gave you permission to go to let's say they say you can go to a dinner with your father or something like that, they still have this ankle bracelet going as like a reminder that they know you're not at home. So Daniel has that potentially in his future. He could be released early. He likely will be released 6 to 8 months before the 45 months comes to its end. There's likely a bit of credit that we aren't talking about just because he was in jail since April. So there's 3 months here that he's been doing time. It's not a lot of credit, but it likely shaves off a few months, if not more, of his sentence. So we'll see how they apply it. And
that was a 45-month sentence, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a little less than 4 years. And all right, so let's get into it. I think let's start with what can make us happy. I mean, Gordon Kromberg lost.
Yes.
Like Gordon Kromberg wanted, and his team. Gordon Kromberg's this notorious attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia that's out to get Julian Assange's head.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, the Biden Justice Department, Attorney General Merrick Garland haven't stopped him from pursuing this political case. And he was also adamant about prosecuting Daniel Hale, a prosecution that's almost similar to Julian Assange. I wrote about how the defense was given a document that they shared with the judge that shows that superiors at the Justice Department under President Obama didn't want to charge Daniel Hale.
Mm-hmm.
We can discuss why that might be. I have multiple opinions. One could be that they recognized that they didn't have that great of a case because all of this information we're talking about wasn't going to risk the kind of harm that the government wanted to allege. But then there's also the possibility that they were ultra sensitive about the content of the documents and didn't want to invite further attention to President Barack Obama's expansion of the targeted assassination program. I think, it's possible at this time. It's 2014, 2015. He's only got a couple of years left in office. He's thinking about his legacy. He was getting a lot of negative media attention about what he had done to expand the kill lists. People nicknamed them like President Kill List. I've also seen Drone Warrior in Chief.
Mm-hmm.
And that may not have been the image that the administration wanted because it makes him seem like he's just this kind of like bloodthirsty president. And so it's possible they said, well, we don't want someone who's exposing the drone program to be put on trial during our administration. And they might have said that they just didn't want to go forward with this anymore. Also at that time, there were a record number of prosecutions under the Espionage Act. And I'm not suggesting that they had a quota, but perhaps someone said, we've had enough of these. We can pump the brakes because, we're getting a lot of, again, negative attention from media groups and press freedom advocates who say that we're just trampling over the relationship that people are trying to establish, reporters and their sources. We're chilling the ability of people to do investigative journalism. And so it's possible that they paused. And however, all the materials were still there for the Trump administration to dust off, just as in the Assange case. And Gordon Kromberg went onward with it, and he lost.
Yeah, which is good. It's always good for that guy to get knocked down a peg or two, because he really is kind of on a rampage. So
during Assange's trial, wasn't he referred to as the Assistant U.S. Attorney General?
He was the Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. He was never the U.S. Attorney, though.
Okay.
But he's had a leadership position in that district. And so, unfortunately, Gordon Kromberg was able to persuade the judge that Daniel Hale was, to some degree, seeking attention in reaching out to Jeremy Scahill. I think that's one of the more pernicious character attacks. Gordon Kromberg and all people at the Eastern District developed this narrative that suggests that Daniel joined the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency after he was done with his deployment to Afghanistan as a member of the Air Force. And he did it. He signed up with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency to get access to classified information. And in the agency, I'm just telling you what their narrative is. At the agency, he sought Jeremy Scahill because he wanted to become a rock star journalist, or he worshipped people like Jeremy Scahill. He wanted to get close to them. And they say he ingratiated himself to journalists, and there's absolutely no evidence for this, but they insisted on pushing this and trying to make it stick. And it seems that the judge made comments at the end of the hearing, which were reported in the establishment media and also observed by people like Chip Gibbons, who were in the courtroom, where Judge Liam O'Grady said to him that, let's see, let me actually get this for you. You're not facing prison for speaking out about the drone program injuring and killing innocent persons. And then he suggested that a majority of Americans would have commended you for coming forward. You could have been a whistleblower and garnered all this attention without leaking any of these documents, frankly. So he seemed to entertain this idea that he was out to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
There are no problems with that, but I just want to say that it's not true that Daniel Hale could talk about the content of the documents and not open himself up to prosecution. This judge is being either intentionally disingenuous, or he is completely ignorant of what's going on with the Espionage Act if he wants to say that Daniel Hale could talk to us about what he remembered in classified documents and not get a target on his back. Maybe it wouldn't be as harsh, but if he's talking to Jeremy Scahill about what's in the documents versus whether he's got the documents and he can actually show them to someone and they can be published, it actually doesn't really make any difference, because depending on his memory, it could be enough to still get him nailed, because that's still classified, or they would call it top secret information, and they can come after him for it. So the judge is actually wrong, and is also wrong to accept this pernicious attack that Daniel Hale was seeking attention. Because if you go to this New York Magazine feature, I believe I told Misty this one.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about.
It's a great article.
If you go to the New York Magazine feature, there is documented evidence that Daniel Hale was not out to get attention. And that is demonstrated by the fact that his friends have to sit him down in a tavern months before he pleads guilty and urge him to talk to a reporter about his side of the story, because he hasn't gone to anybody yet to tell his side of the story. They're worried that the prosecution is going to get the best of him, because there's nothing to counter the malicious attacks that are in the court filings from the U.S. Justice Department. So he tells them, so they tell him that you've got to do something. And he actually brushes them aside. It's not until April, early April, that he contacts this reporter, Carrie Howley, at New York Magazine. And so this isn't the behavior of someone who's out for attention.
Yeah. And my favorite thing that I saw is that they compared him to a heroin dealer.
Yeah.
I mean, I can put this up on the screen so everybody can see it, because it's It's kind of
You got to read the
amazing.
whole thing. You've got to read this. Go ahead, Misty. You can read this.
Yeah.
This is,
It's I just have the one paragraph here, but did that come up, Andrew?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. Hale has expressed no remorse for his crime. According to Hale, what he did was legally wrong but morally right. Hale has never acknowledged the potentially serious and in some cases exceptionally grave damage to national security his actions could have caused. Under these circumstances, he cannot be entitled to a reduction in offense level for acceptance of responsibility. In analogous circumstances, no one would be awarded such a reduction to a heroin dealer who admitted that he violated the law by distributing heroin, but simultaneously asserted that by distributing the heroin, he was helping society rather than harming it. In sum, Hale was motivated not by transparency, but by self-aggrandizement. A significant sentence, therefore, is necessary and appropriate. I mean, they're comparing a drug dealer to a courageous whistleblower that exposed a murder campaign.
it's pretty impressive, though, when you think about it, because they're perpetuating the war on drugs while at the same time pushing the war on whistleblowers. I never thought that they would pull this off, but it's
amazing multitasking. Well done.
It's a level that I don't think I've seen reached in the Assange case yet. Basically mashing up two completely unjust narratives in order to that you never thought could be connected.
No, they did. They pulled in Vanessa Breitzer pulled in that bullshit 2016 CNN article about Julian turning the embassy into a spy operation.
Oh yeah, the Russiagate.
To justify the existence of surveillance on the embassy. So that
right.
Yeah. So they it's in a different way. But one of the things I find super empowering about Daniel's story, which blows the whole idea of him wanting to be a reporter out of the water, is the fact that he was a dishwasher. That he didn't come out as a whistleblower and then join a publishing institution or start a YouTube channel. He literally became a dishwasher and tried to organize the employees at that restaurant and got fired for it. So
yeah. John Kiriakou did a great interview about that actually on RT.
That blows that whole idea of self-aggrandizing out of the water, because if anything it shows that he is just a self-sacrificing individual.
Well, and the letter that he wrote to the judge, I don't know how anybody could read that letter and think that he's out for attention or, for some self-interest or whatever. That letter is really difficult to read. But again, I'll say it again. I highly recommend you go read it.
Well, I know you were sharing the speech that he gave at the Code Pink Summit in 2013. Mm-hmm. This is exactly at the same time that he's wrestling with what to do because he is clearly traumatized by the role he played in drone strikes, and he isn't sure how much he should speak to the public. He's not sure if he should talk to reporters. He doesn't know where he wants to work. I don't think he's taken the job with Lidos yet, because he only worked there for about 6 months. And his last day at Lidos was in August 2014. So in December, we still got quite a bit of time. There's still a couple months there before he takes the job. So he's speaking at the summit, and there are family members of drone victims or those who were killed, drone casualties that are there at the summit. And I remember this. I was actually at, I don't know if it was this particular event or panel, but I was in DC for this to hear Faisal bin Ali Jabber talk, the man who's mentioned in Daniel's letter, who came from Yemen. He's a civil engineer who came to describe what happened. I remember this attack particularly because the U.S. actually killed a preacher who would go out and speak to lost teenagers, lost Muslim teenagers, and try to prevent them from turning towards extremism. And they ended up killing this preacher who was effectively trying to stop future bin Ladens from becoming a threat in the trying to stop people from turning towards ISIS and stuff like that, the more hardline Islamist militant groups. And then there was a police officer too who was there, and he was killed. And these are people who were one of them at least was relative of Faisal's, and he came to speak to Congress. And so if you look at this clip of Daniel, it's not he hasn't spoken in front of a crowd much before, but he also says, don't clap for me. He doesn't want people to clap for him. And he's there to apologize. He's there to address the people who have been impacted by drones. He wants them to hear his apology. He wants a chance to atone and discuss what he was asked to do on behalf of the U.S. military. And like there's one moment when Ann Wright, who is a really exceptional person, slips up and claps, and he loses his spot, and he's very, hung up on the fact that she's clapping, and he has to struggle to get back into his speech. It just shows you that this isn't somebody who wanted to be a rock star. In fact, he's a much more honorable person because he's just doing this because he thinks it's the right thing to do. Same as Chelsea. In fact, in that clip, he's got Chelsea Manning on a button that he's wearing, and he's there. He's introduced to someone who's in Iraq, Veterans Against the War, even though, just to be clear, he was never deployed to Iraq. But it's sort of this speaks a lot to our politics in our country that no group like Afghanistan Vets Against the War was ever possible. So a lot of those people would just join with IVAW because it was popular to oppose the Iraq War.
Yeah, that clip of him at the drone summit, the Code Pink drone summit in 2013, that's something else that I highly recommend. If you are questioning Daniel Hale's intentions, I recommend you go watch that. I told Kevin the other day when we were talking, every time I watch that, and I've watched it several times, when he apologizes, it gets me every time. You can see the trauma on his face. You can see the angst and like just the haunted, like he just has this haunted look. And, that's obviously just me, like, kind of putting that on him. But I invite everybody to go watch it and tell me I'm wrong, because you can see that, this is something that he's struggling with at that time. And Kevin's right. This is right about the time where he's, grappling with how to handle this. So, yeah, I think that the self-aggrandizing thing is really unfair. It's a really unfair thing for them to claim, and it's completely unprovable.
It's not based in any fact.
No,
he says that he was looking for a college education. He wanted to go to college, and he failed out. Actually, he failed out of the new school in New York because of the fact that the FBI had raided his home. But he wanted to go to college, and that's not evident. Like, they never try to square that in their writing about Daniel Hale. They never have to figure out, like, if he's going to college, how does that fit into his plan to become a rock star journalist? I mean, why go spend the money on tuition if you could just monetize being someone who was involved in the U.S. drone program? Well, obviously, that's not what he was out to do.
Right. And it's kind of amusing to me that anybody would claim that being a whistleblower turns you into some kind of a rock star. It invites chaos and hell into your life. This is not something that I mean, are there some types of personalities who would maybe think that this is something that they could do and, have some kind of delusions of grandeur where they would be, celebrated and whatever. But sure, I guess there could probably be those types of personalities, but you have to be like a really special level of, I don't even know what, to invite that into your life, because it's not like we haven't seen it before. It's not like we haven't seen what they put John Kiriakou through or Chelsea Manning through. So this is not something that I think that most people would, undertake lightly, or so that they could become some kind of rock star. We don't treat our whistleblowers very well.
A whistleblower would be a rock star. Like in a world that made sense, a whistleblower would be a rock star and a publisher would be a rock star. But he literally struggled so much to find employment. He worked as a dishwasher after working for an analyst company, like a probably well-paying career that all he has to do is stroke keys and he can get through. So he's sacrificed so much. So if he gets a chance to listen, I just want him to know that I'm grateful and grateful for everyone that has come out and blown the whistle, because it
You
really
can
does
go
turn
on
your
the
life
Twitter.
around.
You can go to the Twitter page, the Daniel Hale support page, and leave a message of support, and they will get it to him for you. And you can also write to him, I believe, as well. I'm not sure. I'm sure. I don't know if he's staying in the same prison that he's in now. Do you know, Kevin, if he's going to be staying in the same location or?
Well, no. So he's at
Okay.
the Alexandria Detention Center. That's a pretrial facility. And hey, we know about it because they're trying to bring Julian Assange to this facility and hold him there while he waits for trial. Likely will go to a facility close to Virginia, but close is a relative term. I mean, John Kiriakou got a pretty good plea agreement. It was 30 months. And it wound up being that they incarcerated him at FCI Loretto, which is in Pennsylvania. So that was a 3 hour and 40 minute trip to and from. So kind of hard to do in a single day, but not impossible. And he had family and kids, and that limited the amount of time that they could go visit him because they put him far away. They didn't put him in anywhere closer to DC or his home. I believe he was in Arlington, so they didn't put him in a facility closer to Arlington, Virginia. This happened to Jeffrey Sterling too. Jeffrey Sterling's from St. Louis, CIA whistleblower. They put him in a facility in Littleton, Colorado. So that meant that his wife had to hop on a plane to go visit him. And obviously that's going to be a limited amount of time that you could spend that money to go see your husband. So as for Daniel and how he's going to have access to friends and family, I don't know what close to the area will be, but he did tell the judge that he would like something around the area in Virginia. He didn't ask for anything close to Tennessee, although I know he has had some of a home base in Tennessee. I think he was living in Tennessee. I think his family might be from the area in Tennessee. And so I don't know where he's going to actually end up, but he did ask for something close by to where all of this case has been unfolding.
Well, hopefully once we get the information where he's at, we can get a letter writing campaign going for him like we've done for Julian, like we did for Chelsea. Because, I mean, when you're in prison, letters are gold. I mean, just having that contact with the outside world is, a huge deal.
And the other way around is actually gold too. I mean, believe it or not, John Kiriakou wrote a bunch of letters from prison about what was happening. And that was a way of insurance because it told the guards, it told everybody there that people are watching. They know what's happening inside, and they're gonna know what's happening. So be careful what you try to do to me while I'm here. And I published a series of letters from prison that John sent, and it's a way of giving people an insight into how people accused and convicted under the Espionage Act are treated when they serve their prison sentences. Now, it can be scary. It's certainly frightening because you fear retaliation. So there are going to be people like Reality didn't want to do anything like that to write letters, or I don't know if Daniel's going to want to. He seems like a pretty private person. Again, to belie that smear that he's out for self-aggrandizement. But I think within the walls of whatever prison he is going to be held in, that he'll be working with people and trying to help fellow prisoners so that they are supported by him. And that's certainly what I think he's done while he's been in jail in Alexandria.
So there's a friend of the show, David McBride, who's a whistleblower from out in Australia, that served as an officer in the Australian military and then later became a whistleblower after, like many others, trying to go through the appropriate channels to reveal this information that they felt was wrong. And in his case, it particularly showed, he showed the politicalization of the war, that there was literally orders being given specifically to help bolster people's political campaigns or political power within the country. And Daniel Hale's case, in its own way, here in the United States, is very similar, where you had the Obama administration literally pulling out what he is described as baseball cards with people's names and crimes and locations listed on them, and then making the order to kill them, literally based on the whim of a card, which is crazy to me.
I have to laugh. Like, I don't mean to
Yeah.
laugh, but it like every time we talk about this, I picture like this group of crazy, psychopathic, bloodthirsty murderers with their little trading cards, deciding who lives and who dies, and it's just ridiculous.
So I was just wondering,
Yeah.
Kevin, if you could maybe talk a little bit or what you thought about the idea of these two cases being very, very similar in what they showed, almost vindicating David McBride for the information that he revealed.
Well, yeah, I know just a little bit about David's case, but I know both are shedding details on the war in Afghanistan. And I think, what's striking about David's case is at the same time that they're coming down on him, I believe there was actually an official inquiry into some special forces team for Australia in Afghanistan over atrocities that they committed. And then they were going to refer at least a half dozen individuals for whatever they call their court martials, or they're going to have some kind of proceeding, legal proceeding against those people accused of those atrocities. But they still haven't finished, doing what they're doing to David. So that was really incredible. We don't have that happening in our country. We actually don't have any justice at all for any of the people who are committing war crimes. We had a president who pardoned a bunch of people who were accused of war crimes. So we actually
Who brought
went
people into
backwards.
his administration that were previously convicted and then released of fucking war crimes, right? Bringing
Right,
the
right.
architects of Afghanistan and Iraq back into power.
Exactly. So we can barely keep the people who have been convicted of war crimes from being a part of our politics and running our government. So he's rehabilitating these soldiers. That was what Donald Trump effectively was doing. So I mean, I look at Daniel's case and I think that his revelations are basically, the one connection I hadn't made until a week or two ago was to think about what President Obama had been saying at the time before these disclosures, because that's something that is crystallized by reading Daniel Hale's letter. You get to recognize that this is someone who's deployed in the military who hears the president telling a lie about how the program works. Again, like, I presume he was told quite a bit about this program. He was at least told a lot about the CIA program. I don't know how much he knew about the way the military program worked, but I imagine he really wanted to have his hands on the CIA program. And he's saying these things like, well, it's got to be an imminent threat in order to target and kill someone. Well, actually, we learned from Daniel in these papers that he released that it was just a specific threat to a U.S. interest, whatever that means. I mean, that's could be anything. It doesn't even have to be a soldier, and it certainly doesn't mean that somebody in Afghanistan was plotting an attack on like a U.S. facility anywhere in the world. And the other thing is, again, like, I think there's some perspective that has to be had when we talk about the occupation of Afghanistan, because it's like to consider these people as terrorists and target and kill them in the way that that we did, it it so bothered Daniel Hale because it didn't seem like that's the way wars should be fought. It's like, if you're going to fight an enemy, you should go onto the field of combat and actually face down that person. And, you should know from the fact that you are witnessing that person that they pose a threat to you or not. But by doing it the way that our government does now through remote control warfare, as Daniel Hale will tell you, you have no idea, and you cannot guarantee when you are doing kill or capture missions that the person you are going after isn't a civilian. You just can't. And so that's I think, it's similar to David's case, but in some ways it's even more substantial, because with Daniel Hale, what he's challenging is the entire transformation for how we fight wars.
Mm-hmm.
We are withdrawing our U.S. forces from Afghanistan, but we are not done with the war in Afghanistan. We are 20 years in counting, and right now we've plundered, we've wasted so much blood and treasure, but the treasure is going to continue to be wasted, and by the time it's all over, I don't think there will be even any comparison to what happened to the Soviet Union, which had an effect in sinking them when we were arming the Mujahideen in Afghanistan and deliberately trying to lay a trap, create a quagmire for the Soviet Union so it would crumble. But we are ignoring any lessons from that. We're ignoring our own battle strategy and pursuing these people in Afghanistan who have a limitless amount of time, and their ideology has no boundary, and they will continue to fight on behalf of their land for whatever they want. The Taliban will continue to fight for their own agenda. Against it is no match for whatever goal the United States has for Afghanistan. And yet we are just going to continue to launch airstrikes into Afghanistan, try to push back the Taliban feebly. Meanwhile, there are warlords that have taken over the different parts of Afghanistan who were empowered by either the Afghan security forces or parts of the Afghan government in order to enforce a brutal peace. And it's a horrible status quo, but the future is just that you're going to have this kind of 21st century warfare that Daniel Hale has exposed or did expose. And that's why I think more than anything, that's why he's a hero, because he stands out as one of the only whistleblowers who put his foot down and said he was going to do something. So we understood this system. It's like, Chelsea Manning gets her place in history as showing us diplomacy to a degree, to a horrific degree that we had never seen, and showing us documents that are only a few years old. Not we've seen diplomatic documents before in archives, but those are 25, 35, 40 years old. And it's like, hey, this is what happened with Pinochet in Chile. And this is, but this is the CIA supported a coup against Iran. And it's but that was a half century ago. So she showed us what was happening in almost near real time.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, saying here's the archive of how we prosecuted these wars. I'm not going to wait until we've withdrawn forces. You get to see this now because we need to challenge the wars. And Daniel Hale is saying here, this is what I was asked to do. And I'm going to tell you what I was tasked with doing. I'm going to tell you why doing it this way as a signals intelligence analyst for geolocation, I'm going to tell you why we kill people who aren't terrorists. Because just going after like metadata or looking for people's cell phones, I mean, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're going to get targets. And oftentimes we're killing people who aren't even on the lists.
Yes. And what scares me about this like new kind of warfare is that I mean, there's nothing humane about war, but it does strip away all humanity from war. And not only that, I think it makes it much more difficult to kind of rally the anti-war movement, because if there's no boots on the ground, quote unquote, if there's no troops in harm's way, it's so much easier for people to be accepting of, well, nobody's going to get hurt. You know what I mean? Because it's not American soldiers that are at risk. And so I worry that this is like a whole other level. We're going to be able to manufacture consent to continue these wars because it does remove so much of that. And it's a further removal of the the actual realities of war. And that's unfortunate.
Well, somebody is getting hurt because Daniel Hale was hurt. He is traumatized from being asked to do that. And, you know, he's not the only person who goes through that trauma. And also, there are some who aren't even deployed to war zones to do that work of being involved in drone strikes. There are people who are tasked with that mission and are on bases in the United States, and then they return home to their families and they're not actually able to talk about what they did that day and that they witnessed. There's actually there's a really good film with, let's see, hang on a second, I was going to confirm the title. There's this film with Ethan Hawke that's really good that is about this. Anyways, I don't have the title. Maybe I'll come up with it before we end the.
But I do have a question for you, Kevin. It's something I try to ask everybody that's really personally involved and invested in stories like these. We had Chelsea Manning, who was one of 100,000 people that had the information that she did that released it to the public. Regardless of what it was, but a whistleblower in the national security state, that was 1 in 100,000 people. Then you have someone like John Kiriakou, who whistleblew and was maybe one of dozens of people, maybe hundreds. Daniel Hale, same case, maybe dozens, maybe a few hundred people that had this information. And then you get all the way down to something like Vault 7, where they don't even know who really did it, and it could have been one of maybe tens of people. So I was just wondering what you thought of that probability scale becoming increasingly in our favor, where it went from the 1 in 100,000 hero that stood up and did the right thing to now 1 in tens, or in Daniel Hale's case, maybe 1 in hundreds that had this kind of information that could put it out.
Yeah, so just to tell you, this movie that I was hemming and hawing about, it's called Good Kill. And he's in Nevada. I think it's called Creech Air Force Base, I believe. And he reports there by day to do these like top secret drone missions. He goes home to his family and he can't talk about it, but he's like clearly going through some kind of trauma. And anyways, this whole thing with Daniel has reminded me of that, because you know there's really no way to get people who are not involved in that work to understand what you're going through. And so anyways, it's a Hollywood film, but it does a decent job of communicating that problem that you have psychologically. So this thing of like, if I understand your question correctly, you're saying that like less people, when Chelsea Manning blew the whistle, were willing to do something to expose information, and like now more people are exposing information. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like the ratio of Chelsea being 1 in 100,000 down to the.
Do you think that we're seeing like a level where people are fed up and there's going to be more people coming forward with this kind of stuff? I think is what he's saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I absolutely believe that there are because I don't think that like this is why the prosecutors talk about needing a deterrence, but I don't think it actually works, because if you think about the way we talk about other crimes, and you think about deterrence in our criminal punishment system and what is done to people, predominantly like Black Americans, they talk about deterring certain behaviors, but it actually doesn't work because those things still continue to happen no matter how harsh those sentences are. People still murder even though they know they might get life in prison. So deterrence doesn't actually prevent the crimes. There's something at the root that you have to address in order to prevent those crimes from being committed. And so the same goes here. They're afraid. They're really afraid that younger people, I mean, they could be in our generation, but they also could be younger than us, much younger than us, people who are just leaving college and university, who are possibly more idealistic. There are going to be things that people see in these institutions going forward that is probably a lot more nightmarish than anything we've imagined so far.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing what we know about climate disasters and catastrophes that are ripping through, knowing what's going on with all these like corporations that have been empowered, the extent to which surveillance has expanded. Things, just think of like, I mean, there's, on a small scale, but just think of like what we're talking about with the Pegasus project infecting people's phones. I mean, I can't imagine what people in some of these agencies are able to see right now that we should be reporting.
Right, like people freak out about like the fappening, right, and shit like that. Just imagine what's going to happen once someone in one of these major national security institutions just drops the entire shadow net and is like, hey, here's everything the NSA has collected on everybody for the last 20 years. Like, do something about it. Like, that's what I'm waiting to see and what I'm hoping for, honestly. But one of the things, too, personally, that I wish someone would put out there is the full fucking court trial from Julian's case. The full video of all of the hearings that happened in September. That's something that like I personally want to be able to watch and have it be released to the world.
We should be able to watch it. This is a huge court case that decides the future of press freedom, and it was done behind closed doors. And
I'm very jealous
freaks me
of
out.
you, Kevin, as is like in a very dark kind of way, because you did such a great job covering it back then.
Well, no, we need that transparency, but so they know that younger people are. I think there's less obedience to authority, but like it's not the way you would expect. Like I don't think it's like fuck the man obedience, like disobedience to authority, like 1960s counterculture. I think it's more of like, hey, this is happening, and then like they go find like 2 or 3 people to share it with, and then they like quietly post on social media, and then before that it's spread like the telephone, and then there's nothing you can do. And it's not like they don't believe that they're willing to accept these institutions exist. They don't want to tear them down, but they're there, and there's something fundamentally wrong about how they're working, and they are trying to figure it out. So that's what prosecutors know. That's what Gordon Kromberg sees, and what he's trying to do is prevent the next few rounds of Edward Snowden and Daniel Hale from stepping forward and absolutely exposing what is an open secret inside of these places. That thing that has become accepted that nobody challenges. I mean, he talks about like, why didn't Daniel Hale come forward and blow the whistle if what he thought was actually wrong? Why doesn't he just go to his superiors? Why doesn't he just say something to them and go to Congress? And the problem is, all of those people are implicated and involved in this killing machine. So how are you going to do that? I mean, it's the same thing that I said about Chelsea Manning when they're like, she didn't blow the whistle. Why didn't she do more to well, she actually did like contact the media.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't she do more? Like, why didn't she go to a congressman? Why didn't she do that? They said this about Reality Winner too. But these people are lower level. Nobody in Congress wants to talk to them. They're not in any leadership position. These are not like these people we're talking about, Daniel Hale, Reality Winner, Chelsea Manning. They don't get invited as witnesses to testify at these hearings that are held on Capitol Hill about important issues. Like, it's very rare that people at like the grassroots level of something, like, honestly, this has absolutely nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but that thing, the only example I can come up in my mind where somebody at like the grassroots level actually ended up before Congress in like recent history was the Wall Street Bets thing with the guy who like they actually had him talking to them about the thing that he's doing on Reddit, and the like, it's not really a movement, but the thing that he was spearheading. But you don't ever see people like that talk to Congress. They don't want to talk to people like Reality Winner or Daniel Hale or Chelsea Manning. They don't believe that they have they just, they don't think that there's any merit to what they believe.
Right. Well, I mean, Nancy Pelosi in 2003 was read in on the U.S. torture programs, right?
Yeah, these are all people who are complicit. Of course, they don't want to talk to them. They're I mean, a lot of these people. It's like, when a woman is being beaten by her husband and her husband's a cop. Who do you go to? Who do you talk to? I mean, who are you supposed to blow the whistle to? When all of the people who are above you in the chain of command are, implicated in the thing that you're trying to blow the whistle on, there's nobody to go to. And that's when you're left with like this crisis of conscience. Do I risk my own personal life and safety and liberty to expose this, or do I just keep my mouth shut? And I mean, that's a tough call.
And what if they tell you, well, okay, so here are some things we'll do and we'll make it work better. And in your mind, you say, well, I don't want to make it work better. The problem is that this is how we're doing. I mean, when you read what Daniel is saying, okay, so here's what is in bold. So the drone papers that are at the Intercept, there's a bold part here that says, by the way, let me just tell you that I think that the Intercept is really weird because they're not WikiLeaks, and they need to stop acting like they're WikiLeaks.
Yes, please.
He's the source for this documents, and you should now speak like Daniel Hale was the source for these drone papers, Betsy Reed. That's my direct address to you.
And if you're a whistleblower, please don't go to the Intercept. Please don't go to the Intercept.
Stop pretending like it's source protection to, when you're asked about this, say that you won't comment on sources, but you think that Daniel Hale obviously shouldn't have received such a severe sentence, but you won't like talk about him. It just comes off as like, inauthentic
trashy.
And kind of shady.
Yes.
Trashy. It's like just like he's your source.
Yeah.
And then,
own it. Like, you burned your source. It sucks. He's in jail now. Own that shit.
So Daniel says the military is easily capable of adapting to change, but they don't like to stop anything they feel is making their lives easier or is to their benefit. This is certainly, in their eyes, a very quick, clean way of doing things. It's a very slick, efficient way to conduct the war without having to have a massive ground invasion mistakes of Iraq and Afghanistan. But at this point, they've become so addicted to this machine, to this way of doing business, that it seems like it's going to become harder and harder to pull them away from it the longer they're allowed to continue operating in this way. So, you go tell your superiors that you think you're doing it wrong. You're doing this geolocating. It doesn't actually work. We're killing civilians. We're not killing the targets. You go and tell them that this thing that you're asked to do isn't working. And they say, well, but that's just the way we're doing it now. This is the way we do war. And like, so what if we kill several hundred people who aren't terrorists? I'm going to tell you, because we're an empire, the response to anyone concerned about those will be, well, what were they going to amount to anyways? They're just in a third world country. Like they just, like they didn't have a future anyways. So we were probably doing them a favor by bombing them with our missiles.
Yeah. And that's exactly what these whistleblowers are up against. I mean, it's a culture now. We have this culture of war, and it's, it's the American exceptionalism. We do it better than anybody else. We don't want anybody to tell us how to do what we're doing. And, and especially when these are legit war crimes. And so when you're going and like saying, hey, this is a problem, they're not going to look kindly on that. You're going to face retaliation from that. And so it's really kind of like weighing how to handle that. And I mean, anybody who judges somebody in that situation and how they deal with it. I remember John Kiriakou was even asked on that Watching the Hawk show, well, why do you think that he pled guilty? Why didn't he try to fight it? Blah, blah, blah. And John Kiriakou's like, look, you can't judge him until you're in that position. He's facing the full force of the United States empire. I mean, they're coming for him. And he said, I chose to fight. He's choosing to not, he chose to plead guilty. And that's, I mean, you can't, unless you're in that situation, there's no way that you can tell how you would handle it or what the best way to deal with it would be. And it's very case specific. I mean, each person has their own chain of command. They're each have their own situation. They each have their own personal belief system. And I can't imagine, I mean, I say this all the time. I would like to think I would be brave enough and cool enough to do what a Daniel Hale or a Chelsea Manning or, John Kiriakou has done. I don't know that I am. I mean, that's a really difficult thing. So, I mean, there just seems to be a lot of judgment about the way these whistleblowers try to handle what they're dealing with. And that's just tough.
Yeah. And as like a tactical move, it didn't look like it was going to pay off. I was skeptical. I sent you something, Andrew, that I'd like to play before I leave the show, but let me finish my thing. I can introduce it, but I just thought since we're talking about Empire, it might be a fun clip to show people, anybody who's tuned in. But it ended up working. I mean, it was a gamble, but he decided without any plea agreement offered that he was going to plead guilty to one charge and try to make those 4 other charges disappear. And it ended up working. Like yeah. It didn't look like the prosecutors didn't have to do it, but the way the defense went about it, they had a point. Like they said, everything you're criminalizing is connected to this one charge. So these other 4 charges are duplicative, or it's overcharging. He really should have only had one charge against him to begin with, because it was all one thing. He gave documents to Jeremy Scahill. That's the crime. They start like adding all these other things. Well, he stole it. Well, he had it on a hard drive. Well, he did this. It's like, it's all one thing. It's all giving documents to a reporter. That's what the government is criminalizing.
I have that video ready if you want to intro it. I'm going to throw it up on the screen share real quick.
We were talking about Empire, and I thought people might enjoy you playing this clip of one of the favorite targets of Empire.
Yeah, let me roll it.
And
compañero decía, China, Rusia también es imperio. Yo diría, es un país desarrollado, tal vez potencia. ¿Qué hace imperio? Comparto con el compañero. Imperio invade. El imperio instala bases militares y el imperio chantajea su desarrollo de un país, como Estados Unidos. Porque si Estados Unidos imperio usa al Fondo Monetario Internacional y dice, si quieres crédito, alguna ayuda, primero tienes que privatizar tus recursos naturales. ¿Para qué? Para saquear. Yo no he visto una base militar de China ni de Rusia en toda América Latina. No hay. Así, Rusia en algunos países está enfrentando las bases militares de Estados Unidos para sacarlo. Esa es la pelea a pedido de sus países. Esa es la profunda diferencia. ¿Qué es imperio? ¿Qué es una potencia? ¿Qué puede ser potencia? Mira, compañeros, si nosotros cumplimos con nuestra meta de industrializar el litio, porque tenemos un plan a 2028-2030, 40 fábricas de litio. Bolivia, con tema litio, va a ser una potencia mundial. Es una potencia en ese rubro. Esa no es esperanza, es una tarea. ¿No? Entonces, una cosa es la potencia desarrollada, otra cosa es imperio. Imperios son los que invaden países, ¿no? Repito nuevamente, yo nunca he visto Rusia de China, de algún país, India, y también es una potencia que tiene sus bases militares. La profunda diferencia con el imperio norteamericano.
Anyways,
He's 100% right. He's 100% right.
I just like that for.
Yeah, I mean that's it. We are,
refreshing.
yeah, we're invaders. We're colonizers. Hi, Daryl.
So Kevin, before we have to let you go because we are running out of time with you, I did want to, if not already almost out basically, I did want to ask one last question. What you thought of the mainstream, like liberal MSNBC, CNN talking heads speaking so casually about the success of the U.S. drone program and how it should be used domestically against terrorists here in our country.
Yeah, are they actually saying that? Because that's
They are.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
They are.
Yes, they are.
I'll have to brush up on I'll have to go through some media clippings then.
Oh.
If that's where they're at. You mean are they saying that we should use it to?
It's been floated as a way to deal with the white supremacy and the homegrown terrorists and the domestic. Yeah.
The ones that.
Yes.
The ones that the FBI were creating to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. The FBI's plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer that a couple stupid people got caught up in.
Yeah, there's 12 FBI guys and then like 6
There's
actual.
12 informants.
Yeah.
So the FBI plotted to kill Gretchen Whitmer, and those wonderful citizens helped get them busted by the FBI.
It's amazing that they tried that again because that's the same state.
That's sarcasm, by the way.
Yeah,
that's the same state with the Hootery militia. That case fell apart against them as well. Those they were so. I mean, this is liberal ideology for you, that they don't question the way something is done overseas and when it's imported at home, they very quickly have all of their think pieces and their columns, and they'll do their like Rachel Maddow straight talk segments to the camera about it. And the prime example was when we saw the war equipment in Ferguson, Missouri back in 2015. Yeah. This is actually about the time that Daniel Hale would have been raided. And so that happens. And they're like, oh, where did all this Pentagon equipment come from? And then now, I imagine that there is a lot you could do with drones, remote aircraft, and
I'm not 100% sure that it's the one that I'm thinking of.
No. You're gonna play something funky, aren't you?
Well,
is it the one where they're spying on the protesters and then they're also flying around the whole neighborhood?
I'm not 100% sure that it's the right one, so bear with me here.
Oh boy, if you play something funky, you're fired.
I'm terrible.
And again, this is us saying so, John Hammond. That is a bulletin released to all law enforcement earlier this week, that there is, until the end of April, a persistent threat of domestic extremism, domestic terrorism carried out in the ideology and around this belief that the election was fraudulent, that the COVID restrictions are unnecessary. All of those ideologies pushed by Donald Trump. But my question for you is around incitement. We had a policy, and it was very controversial. It was carried out under the Bush years and under the Obama years, of attacking terrorism at its root, of going after and killing, and in the case of Amr al-Awlaki, an American, a Yemeni American, with a drone strike for the crime of inciting violence, inciting terrorism. Mitch McConnell was in the Senate then. He was in the Senate after 9/11 too. How does Mitch McConnell, who understands that the way you root out terrorism is to take on, in the case of Islamic terrorism, kill those who incite it, how does he not vote to convict someone that he said on the floor of the Senate incited an insurrection?
So let me dump the screen share real quick. Of similar people saying similar things about the same issue, right? Drone striking, using how effective it was and controversial, but it rooted out that Islamic terrorism. So that's a horrifying
It's terrifying.
reality. And
especially
that's the
now that
woman
we're
they
all
think, just as a note, they think Nicole Wallace is going to bring in like the under
the
20
young viewers.
viewership. So like, I don't know about you, but I don't think people under 20 like drone striking domestically.
I don't think so.
Just-
Not most.
I think they made a bad choice there.
Well, and now with this new domestic violent extremist thing, we're all essentially domestic terrorists. Like there's a category for everybody. There's something for everybody. So it really is terrifying that this is being floated so like just blatantly on mainstream media. Nobody's talking about it. Well, we are, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. I mean, this is. I mean, Hillary Clinton wanted to drone strike Julian Assange, and it's scary that this is the way that they're handling their problems.
I don't know if you've made this connection, but do you realize that Nicole Wallace was basically saying that Mitch McConnell should have voted to impeach Donald Trump because deep down he understands that Donald Trump deserved to be assassinated by a military drone?
A little bit, yeah.
That's her argument. Her argument is
that's definitely what it is. That if you like take it all the way around, that's 100% what she's saying.
Her argument is that Anwar al-Awlaki was killed, and so we should kill Donald Trump.
That is crazy. I hadn't really made that. That's nuts. Yeah. Oy, oy, oy.
Right. But I would like to thank you, Kevin. I don't want to keep you any
Yes.
longer. You've had an exhausting day, and we've already
Yes.
kept you for more than we should have. So I appreciate you joining us. If you could give people
And
some
thank you
final
for your
thoughts
coverage.
where they
Thank
can
you.
find you.
Although today I was leaning on Chip, but
That's all right. We still appreciate what you do.
So you know, if anyone watching this was like, well, I'd like to actually know what happened in the sentencing hearing, you can go find that interview I did with Chip Gibbons at Shadowproof YouTube channel. Watch the first 15 minutes. You don't really have to watch the stuff after it, but he just gave an uninterrupted rundown of what took place in the court. And again, we didn't even get to how like you get a firsthand glimpse at the conveyor belt of people that come through our courts, because there were 5 other cases that this judge heard before they finally got to Daniels. So he had to like wait an hour, and then they got to him, and then they cleared the room for secret evidence, and then they let people come back in an hour later. It was rather nuts. So there's that. And then if you go to thedissenter.org, that's where you could subscribe to the newsletter and get all the latest on these whistleblower cases and updates on Julian Assange's case. So thank you all for talking, and have a good rest of your show.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you for joining us.
See
man.
ya.
Thank you so much. I put the link in chat for the Shadowproof website. I'm dropping it into Rockfin right now.
Okay,
If you
and Glory
haven't-
Jones is in the chat. Glory Jones.
Right?
Glory Jones. I'm fangirling. Glory Jones is in our chat.
Shoot her a link, let her. She can hop in. We don't really have a
Yeah,
link.
Glory, jump in here.
Mark
Does
should
she
be
have?
jumping
Does she
in
have
any
this
minute.
link?
He's probably watching.
I'll send it. Yeah, Mark said he was coming. I saw that in the. Hold on. I don't know if Glory has a link, so I'm gonna. Glory, I'm tweetering you. And then also, Jilly said that Lee Camp's. I haven't watched it. I saw that Lee Camp did a video. I love Lee Camp, y'all. He is the best. I never have to ask him to do coverage of this stuff. But when I do, he is 100% receptive and gets right on it. He's amazing. I'm not saying that he's perfect, so don't come for me like, oh my god, but he did that, because that happens every time. I appreciate,
No matter
seriously,
what you do, they come
you
for
can't
you.
say anything nice about anybody, because then somebody will be like, come into your mentions and be like, yeah, but in like 2009 he said this about this, and I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care about your beef with this person.
If we were in pre-colonial America, there would definitely, you would have like a whole trope of people that are like, you're a witch.
But yeah, Lee Camp's great. He comes to our actions when we go to DC, which is more than I can say for a lot of people. So I don't care about your beef with Lee Camp if you have one. I like him. That's all that matters. How about that?
Right.
People do that with Steve Cox all the time. Like every time I tweet about Steve Cox or retweet Steve Cox or he's coming on my show tomorrow, I have to deal with like 942 Twitter mentions where people are like, he blocked me because I did this, or I don't care.
Can I run Daniel Hale's speech at the Code Pink conference?
Yeah, I don't know how long it is, but
It's
yeah.
only like 8.
I honestly thought you were going to say, hey, I'm going to run, like go do something and leave me on camera by myself
No,
again.
no,
I really
no.
thought you were.
That's what the videos are for, so that way.
Okay.
But
Yeah, you can run that.
Can
I don't know how long it is though, do you?
It's not too long. It's
Okay.
less than 10 minutes.
It makes me teary-eyed every time.
It does. I got it queued up. Let me pull it up real quick.
Okay.
I got to screen share first.
Yeah, the part where he apologizes is tough.
I'll share the audio so you can hear it.
Okay.
Hello. Hi. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be saying some.
Of course.
Buffering.
Analyst, and he will tell you more about his saga and his journey. Daniel, please.
Hello. Hi. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be saying some stuff, and there might be like a knee-jerk reaction to clap, or just because it's a crowd of people here. I just want, if everybody would please, to resist that urge and just understand that nothing that I'm going to be talking about is really clap-worthy. But understandably, I'm pretty nervous. This is my second time doing this. I failed public speaking in college, which was about as much college as I got. So, but I definitely want to send thanks to Code Pink, especially Noor for helping organize all of it. She's been very helpful. I'd like to send a thanks out to Jeff Millard, who's the Iraq Veterans Against the War chapter leader in DC. However, he's not here today, but that's okay. And then all of you, I think it's pretty amazing to see all this. Without Jeff encouraging me, and without realizing that there is this voice of people this crowd of people who want to hear about this issue, I definitely probably wouldn't be up here talking about it. One of the things that veterans suffer from the most is this fear that the public is just really not concerned with our stories or our experiences. And, there is some truth to that, but it's good to see that it's not entirely true. And before I begin, one last thing, I just would like to, in a way, say I'm sorry. I'm not up here for any good reasons. And to the people in the audience who are victims or who are families of victims or have families who live in countries where U.S. militarism and specifically unmanned systems are conducting kinetic strikes. I'm sorry because I'm up here because I was for a short period of time during my military career as an analyst working with unmanned systems deployed to Afghanistan. And at the very least, you all deserve an apology. But anyway, no, thank you, but it's okay. I'm sorry. It's a little, it's okay. But before I can say anything else, in the words of Edward Teller, he once said that secrecy, once accepted, becomes an addiction. And imagine he said that in a vastly different time and place, but today that's never been more true in regards to U.S. foreign policy. And for that reason, I have to express that the ideas expressed here are strictly my own and not that of the U.S. government and Department of Defense. That is laughable, but it's a sincere statement. One of the problems when veterans speak out is that people within the community from where they came feel that they're being personally attacked, and it sometimes causes backlash. If you all were to imagine for a second, as I'm sure some of you probably have, exactly what goes into a specific mission where an unmanned system is conducting surveillance and then goes on to perform a kinetic strike. You would probably think about, you know, and it's common that you imagine the pilot sitting in a bunker with possibly a co-pilot and a bunch of computer screens in an air-conditioned facility. And to some degree, you would be correct. That is a part of the mission. However, you would be imagining probably one of the most, and least, I don't want to say insignificant, but it is a very tiny portion of a much broader global military apparatus that goes into these missions. It is not simply just a pilot in a cockpit somewhere in the United States. It is a mission that is conducted with the assistance of virtually every intelligence community in the United States, every branch of the military. There are people and persons who are making decisions that are being carried out by these individuals. In order for you to understand what I did specifically, I'm sure that some of you have heard the story of Brandon Bryant, who details his experience as a sensor operator, basically the person who controls the camera, sometimes referred to as the baller in slang terms. But my contribution would have been as an analyst or who would be utilizing surveillance systems aboard UAVs or drones. I'm sorry, I just commonly call them UAVs. But I would utilize and manipulate surveillance equipment aboard the plane or bird that would then I would take the data that I would receive from that and then inform the sensor operator, which is usually the person who sits beside the pilot, and where to point their camera and look. You know, I wanted to try and tell a short story about, you know, how I took this journey from being a person who deployed, working with drones, to realizing that I was fooling myself about, you know, what we were doing. And, you know, in May of 2012, I was deployed to Afghanistan, and I was waking up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and first thing I did is got on my access badge and put on my uniform, grabbed my weapon, though I'm not sure why they gave me a weapon, but you carried one around the base anyways, though I never used it or needed it. And about 100 or so yards away from where I slept every day was where I started and finished my mission. I would walk into this, you know, this makeshift facility that has been there for, you know, a decade in Afghanistan or so, and been basically conducting missions for the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force Afghanistan. There are several task forces, but that was the one I was working for. And I would every day I'd go in, and as soon as I get past the security door, you know, right there from the beginning of the entrance was basically just a spare TV that would play a slideshow there. I guess is basically as a decoration, more or less. There was no significance to it, but it was a stark contrast, or a stark realization that on this television screen were a slideshow of, you know, the most dramatic images from 9/11, the tower attacks, and then in between there would be, you know, pictures of George Bush kind of looking somber in front of an American flag. And I mean, it really, I only talk about this and point this out because we never talked about it. Nobody mentioned it. It wasn't significant or important, but you always saw it whenever you entered and left the building. And I mean, often people would probably, if you asked them what it was for, they would say, well, it's just a reminder of why we're here and what we're doing. And however, for me, as personally, whenever I saw that, I had a similar sort of reaction, but I would always think to myself how ridiculous it was that when those photos were taken, and I remember when I was sitting in my 9th grade classroom as a 14-year-old watching that happen, that at that same time, that there were children in Afghanistan who are now today considered military-age males, and that's how they're referred to. It just kind of struck me as ridiculous. But immediately after that is it's just a small, narrow hallway with a tribute to all of the persons within our task force that had fallen in Afghanistan since the beginning of the war. And I mean, just dozens and dozens of faces, men and women, who've fallen in battle. And yet, the one picture that stood out to me the most, though, was Pat Tillman's. And if some of you know who Pat Tillman is, then you know that Pat Tillman was a person who sacrificed a career in the NFL in order to join the military after 9/11, and as a patriot and in retaliation for the attacks. But Pat Tillman, being who he was kind of used as when he was killed, he was kind of used as a source of propaganda for look at this sacrifice that he made, and then look at how he fell in battle to terrorism. But it wasn't until years later that his family had to fight to get the truth revealed that he was killed in a friendly fire incident, and the military had tried to cover that up in order to use his fame to gain support, and probably as a recruiting tool. Anyways, after that, I immediately get into the main facility, where there's much sort of like this room. There's this wall of television screens, each one of them displaying a different feed from a different bird in a different part of the country, and just a variety of different desks where people were working. There were liaisons from 13 different intelligence agencies. There were representatives from every branch of the military, and even some from foreign militaries. They're all basically collaborating to conduct surveillance across the country, and this is where we monitored all of Afghanistan. And in that room, my job was to sit up, to take over for the person who had just been running a shift before me, and then I would be handed down a mission that was either ongoing or was just beginning. And these missions were always to go after specific individuals for nefarious activities. Oftentimes we would have the full profile of who these people were and why it was that we were going after them, and basically where they rank as far as the chain of command is concerned and their significance. And all this is done on a computer, and I would communicate my information through chat. My job was to take the information that I was receiving and to feed that to the sensor operator, so they would know where to look and what to look for. And then from there, after a certain amount of either time of observation or opportunity, a decision would be made on whether or not to conduct a kinetic strike or attempt a raid operation in which they would go in and try to detain this person. But I remember this one instance in May, and I was getting there early, and I took over for an analyst who was fairly new and was unsure of what they were doing on this mission. And when I did, it's within a few minutes, I was able to locate the individual that we were looking for. And this individual, who all the information we had was that they were a person involved with IEDs and manufacturing or distributing IEDs across the country. Thank you. And when I found them, they were riding their motorcycle up into the mountains. And this was, again, early in the morning, so it was just after morning prayers, and the sun was still rising, and I was still drinking, coffee before haven't even finished my first cup before this all began rather quickly. And when I found them on their motorcycle, the person that we'd been looking for quite some time, and there had never been an opportunity to kill or capture. And when we found him, he was riding his motorcycle to the mountains, and there was this process ongoing within the basically the command center to decide whether or not to conduct a strike. At that point, the individual had eventually met up with 4 other individuals who were at a campfire, all drinking tea, and clearly either there for breakfast or something was going on. We weren't quite sure. But in a lot of these instances, when there's somebody that they want bad enough to go after, regardless of whether or not there are other individuals there beside them at the time at which they would launch an attack, the only decision is made is whether or not they are of age males in order to be basically considered guilty by association. And this was one of those instances. There was only a moment's pause before they decided whether or not it was worth it to kill 5 people for this one person. And that was a fairly easy decision for them to make, as far as them being the persons in the room whose job it is to make these final decisions. Okay, thank you. And I watched this all go on, and it wasn't the first time I'd ever experienced a kinetic strike or ever seen this happen, but it was the first time when I kind of sobered up and I realized that I was, I felt that I could be okay with this, and that I could be a part of this because I felt like I was sincerely protecting American interests and protecting the people of Afghanistan from threats within their country. But after that moment, when those 4 other people died, and I have no idea whether or not they were associates or just simple bystanders, I came to quickly realize that I was no longer a part of something that was moral or sane or rational. I'll end it on this. I distinctly remember during my training, someone telling me, explaining to me, because I'd never been overseas before, and they explained to me that basically they considered terrorists to be cowards, that they won't fight face to face, so they plant bombs on the side of the road and wait for soldiers to drive by and blow them up. And it was around that time in May after that happened, and I remembered what that person said to me. And I couldn't shake the feeling that what was the difference between that and the little red button on a joystick that has to be pressed to do the same thing, to launch the missile from 10,000 miles away. I don't know. That's basically all I have to say. I had a little bit more, but it's okay. It's good to stop there. Again, thank you.
Well,
Andrew.
I'm here. I'm getting it all.
Okay.
moving.
It's like, did he go somewhere? Glory Jones is here.
Hi, Glory. How are you?
Glory.
What's good, y'all?
So that
Yeah.
is not a man that is seeking any type of self-aggrandizement.
No,
That's
it's ridiculous
not a man
that they
that's
said that.
seeking any type of public attention or public career. That's somebody that is mortified by the decisions that he made after he realized what he was doing.
Did I not tell you that at the very beginning when he apologizes, that's rough. His voice cracks and everything. It gets me every time. Every time. It's terrible. But yeah, Glory Jones, what do you think about this whole sentencing thing that we dealt with today?
I think that's absolutely bullshit. I mean, we were just talking on a Slow News Day later today, one of kind of the memes or social media phenomena that's been going around for a while is every once in a while a viral tweet or a little pop-up that's like, yo, did you hear about Obama? He donates 10% of all of his proceeds to charity. Hey, go and look up Obama 10% to see more about that. And then obviously it leads to all the data of the drones. So like that phenomena that you observe, it comes from this. Like the drone king referencing Obama as the drone king comes from this. And I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. This dude should have, I mean, we have a whole bunch of statues to a bunch of dead racist white guys. We should have statues to Daniel Hale. Like those are the people that, I'm not even a fan of statues. I think statues are stupid. But if we're going to have statues, let's have statues of people like Daniel Hale.
Yeah. I mean, people knock me for being a weeb, but at the end of the day, if you're standing anime characters, you're not standing shitbag politicians.
Right? True story. I don't make fun of you for being a weeb. Is that weeb, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. My kid's a weeb now.
Yes.
Yeah. Now every time she watches a new anime, she's like, ask Glory if this is good. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, she's still stuck on the couple ones that she's, what's it called? Naruto, right?
Oh my God, it's Naruto.
I got my daughter Inuyasha for Christmas, like the full 500 disc set of Inuyasha.
Yeah? Holy shit, there's 500 discs?
No, there's like 700 episodes and like 18 movies.
Okay, I was gonna say, Jesus, I'm never gonna be done with this. No, she's like making her way through different anime series. Like she started with My Hero Academia, and then I forget the other one, but yeah.
Demon Slayer.
Yeah, that's it.
I remember you asking me. I was like, oh my God.
Well, because I don't know. I never got into anime, so I'm like DMing Glory, like, is this one okay for a 10-year-old? Is this like, because I don't know. So yeah, I'm relying on Glory Jones to help me parent my kid.
Yeah, I mean, what have you guys talked about so far on here?
Yeah. Today?
Yeah.
We had Kevin on.
It's been all Daniel Hale all day, essentially.
It has been all Daniel Hale all day. We had Kevin on, and he talked about, because he covered it remotely from Chicago, and then he did an interview with Chip Gibbon, and so yeah, we just talked about Daniel Hale mostly all day today, because nobody else is fucking talking about it, like you guys and us, and that's about it. Nobody else. Lee Camp did a video. I think Jimmy Dore said he was going to cover it. We'll see. That's about it. That's all I've seen. I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about it, which is really frustrating.
Lubbers is supposed to be hopping in to cover his article on Palestine with us that he recently put out.
Yeah, he said like an hour ago, he said he was going to be here.
So I don't know if he's actually getting in. He said he would, but I hope so. But if not, it's okay, because
we only have 23 minutes left. It may be better just to leave it for another day.
Right.
That's Lubbers time for you.
Yeah. He's worse than Convo, I think. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Yeah. The other day, they're like, can you come on Convo at like 4? And I'm like, yeah. So it's like 4:03. And I'm like, do we like have a link? They're like,
hey.
No.
Combo couch.
Is one of the most
Combo couch.
Though. Like
yeah.
It's like always.
Yeah. Well, I'm normally on time just because like I come from the sports world where it's like you always got to be there early and like
or you're running laps.
Yeah, but you gotta get there 15 minutes early at least so you can get up like extra shots and stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah. And then that came on to now. Yeah. So like even though everybody else in Miami and everybody else in, my heritage in the Caribbean is late as hell, I'm not.
And the indie media space, a lot of people are late. Like I also was I'm a single mom, 3 kids. And so we were late for everything. And so now I get like legit anxiety when I'm late for stuff. I get like really panicked.
So I want to give our audience a shout out because while Daniel Hale's thing was playing, everybody gave him a bunch of love and we gained viewership. So having an audience that listening
that's because people are sick of us
like that will help improve. That's fucking awesome. Like people will actually listen when people like that speak. So that was really heartwarming just on my side to see. So
and it's a great speech. Like he gives a great speech.
But on something that is much
nervous.
less heartwarming, because it's good to talk about happy things first. Commander X's sister, and I don't know if you could talk to this, put a tweet out a day or two ago.
I missed it. Really?
about X being being in solitary confinement and the way he's being held right now. So I didn't know if maybe you had more info on that or could talk about that a little bit, Glory, while I try to find and get that pulled up.
Yeah, what did the tweet say?
Let me grab it real quick.
Yeah. But yeah, again,
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah. Well, reminder, October 12th, 9 a.m. in front of the Robert Peckham Federal Building, which is the courthouse housing the prosecutor that's going to, well, not the prosecutor, but the court people that are facilitating the case against X. October 12th is his next court date. So at 9 a.m. that morning, we will be there and we will be raising hell for him. And yeah, hopefully we can get like some coalition with the homeless advocates as well. That'll be cool. And yeah, I don't know if Andrew found the tweet yet.
No, I'm terrible. I'm so bad at Twitter.
Yeah, no. I can find it. I'm much better at Twitter than you are.
Yeah, you are. I'm the worst. I tell Missy all the time I need to fucking actually use social media. I feel like an old person.
We've both been. I need to use social media more effectively, and Andrew just needs to use it, period. I told him I'm gonna start sending him all my trolls. Okay, so here it is. Let's see. Let me screen. Oh, hold on. Whoopsie, wrong button. Let me screen share it so everybody can see. Okay, so Chris is back in solitary confinement. He's let out of his cell 1 hour every 48 hours. I just had a 3-minute phone call with him. He refused to be moved to general population due to serious safety concerns. This is his, quote, consequence.
Yeah, no, that tweet's pretty straightforward without going into too much of the details. He is back in solitary confinement, and even though X is a fighter, solitary confinement doesn't do anyone well. So it's definitely not doing.
It's literally
Yeah, so it's definitely not doing X well, especially with his age and his current health. But he's strong, he's a fighter, and also we're working on scheduling more visits with him. He gets one free video online visit a week. So he'll be able to talk to the people in his team and the people close to him, and get some kind of solace in that. And also it did make him very happy to see some of the support, because during his arraignment hearing, there were people, typing in the chat like, yo, free Commander X, and even Brooks, shout out to the fam, Brooks.
Yeah,
Brooks. He popped in the chat and he said like, yeah, free Commander X.
He's so cute.
I know, he told me, and Steve, he was like, I'm sorry, I think they disabled the chat because I wrote free X, and we're like, Brooks, trust me. But yeah, because all the panelists could see the chat, so like X was able to see the messages to him. And then also Amy Beth is in contact, his sister is in contact with him. She's been talking with him, having calls with him, so he knows that the support was there, and he is very appreciative of that. It really lifts his spirits. So,
and we can write to him too, right? I keep meaning
to
look
can.
Okay, yeah.
Don't know the address, but
no, I'll find it. I'm sure that Steve's got it, or the Free Commander. You can follow at Free Commander X _. That's like a good place to get a lot of information. But yeah, I keep meaning to.
FreeCommanderX.org is the website.
Yeah, but I keep meaning to go get the address and send him a letter. It's just been crazy with the March and everything, so I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. But yeah, letters in jail. We talked about this earlier with Daniel Hale. Letters in jail are gold.
Yeah,
having that contact.
I suck at writing letters too.
I do too. I'm terrible. Like I've written to Julian, and I when Chelsea was back in the last time, I wrote to her. But yeah, I'm terrible at writing letters. They're never very long because
I've visited people in person, and it's way less complicated than all this online shit, thanks COVID. But yeah, I've visited people. I've done the in-person visits. There are more times where I've stood outside of jail and was like yelling at people and like yelling at people at the jail, like, yo, we're with you. Like, there are more times that I've done that than I've written to prisoners. It's really bad. I need to get better at that. And, you know, credit to Julian Assange, because like writing to him was one of the things that actually like got me into actually writing to prisoners. So
yeah, that's because I'm terrible at writing letters too. I never know what to say. My handwriting's terrible. Like, I always joke that I write like a 10-year-old boy who's trying to finish his homework so he can play Xbox.
Are you one of those
really
people?
fast.
So are you? So let me grab like a random piece of paper here. Are you like one of those people where like you'll get a piece of paper and you'll be like, and then you'll start writing?
Yeah.
Yeah. The slant is real.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of the latest that we can think of right now with regards to X's case.
Yeah, to hear that he's in solitary is really that sucks. And only an hour out every 48 hours.
He was literally illegally renditioned out of Mexico in violation of international fucking political asylum as a sick older man, right now dragged through fucking customs, put in a fucking prison, and now left in isolation.
Yeah.
Like,
and for 4
fucked.
years he was just chilling, y'all. He
Yeah.
wasn't doing anything to hurt anybody. He wasn't doing any activism. He was just chilling in Mexico with his dogs. That's all he was doing. He wasn't hurting anybody. And for them to come for him.
The last thing that he was doing, which is what like makes it more cruel, honestly, is it was just as he was starting to like not like get back into activism, but like get back into kind of the broadcasting sphere, but like do it from an activist perspective. Like, one of the last things he did before getting kidnapped was he helped bring Wi-Fi to the Freedom Camp in Santa Cruz with Keith McHenry.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, that's one of the things he said. Like, he was saying like, oh yeah, I want to get this person on and this person on and this person on. And like, yeah, man, I can't wait to have all these people on and talk about all this stuff. Like, I really want to start talking about more environmental stuff too. And like, you know, X is doing like his signature 3-hour answers. And like, we're all there just happy to have him back, because we thought, you know, at the beginning of this year in January was the last time we'd be talking to him. And here he comes back, like really wanting to give back in some way. And then he gets kidnapped. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he just did a show like right before we were on a show, like just a couple, like what was it? A couple weeks, maybe.
Yeah, you guys were hanging out on the Twitch stream.
Yeah, that was fun. And he was in really bad health for a little while.
Do you know, Glory? I don't even know who I should ask for this. But how often? Because most prisons now have a paid streaming service that you can use. Like, not streaming, but like a paid video call service. Like, you get the free ones, but then you can buy more. I put the Free Commander X Twitter on there, but do you know how many video conferences he would be allowed to do like that? Like, if like we could find a way to just like pile on video conferences for him throughout the day?
Free, he gets once a week.
Okay.
I don't know how many, like what the cap on the amount of paid ones that he gets. Yeah.
Because that might be fun, just act like fucking X chats, like crowdfund people calling and talking to him for 15 minutes at a time. Like, fuck letters. It's not fuck letters. Letters are really important.
No,
but it's 2021, and if we can spend $45 every 15 minutes for a 5-hour drive to have X talk to someone on the phone on a Saturday, that would be awesome. Like, if we could do that, if he gets that many calls
any kind of contact that he can
I
have
know
with the outside
video
world.
calls are 25 minutes each.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we should find out like how much they are and like if there's a limit to how many he can do each week, because that will also get him out of his cell more.
Yeah. Or even just a straight commissary fund drive, because he could probably use it for that or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I know that Steve said something about like I mean, to donate to like his books or whatever, you have to like give your information, and a lot of people are not comfortable doing that. So if we can find like one person who's comfortable doing that, then we can all like pool resources and then just do it that way.
Amy Beth does have a fundraiser for that. It's on her Twitter page. So if you want to go there, you can share that, and that's a good place to donate if you're not comfortable, donating to the jail directly. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that a
yeah,
lot of Anons are going to be like, nope,
is
not giving my
bruh.
deets, man. I'm not giving my
See,
deets.
this is why all my jail visits are in person, because it's
Yeah.
the most bureaucratic bullshit ever.
Yeah, it is. Well, even just visits, you have to show your ID, and you have to. It's all this dumb. Well, which I get, I guess.
Show them your license, show them your license number, freaking address, all of that shit.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's a little intense.
See, I'm gonna catch y'all outside because I know where my person's window is, so I'm just gonna yell at them. How about that?
We'll just take a megaphone and just yell at the building.
Right,
oh, I've done it without a megaphone, and they heard me.
I'm sure.
No,
you're loud, Lori
Hale,
Jones.
I don't know.
Like y'all wonder where my natural loudness comes from. It's because I haven't even started using a megaphone until recently.
You don't need one. Really.
Oh man, I got to like belt out at the Medicare for All rally. That was
Andrew
fun.
went off. Like every time the crowd started getting a little bit like bored, I'd be like, Andrew, here's a megaphone.
I just
go
like
forth
yelling.
and yell. Yeah, he does like to yell.
I like to yell.
It's good. There's between the two of you, I don't know who's better with the megaphone, but it's not me. I know that. Maybe.
Thanks.
Maybe it might be Glory Jones. You're both pretty excellent at megaphone. I tend to just like, as I do here, ramble and say weird things. I don't know why they asked me to MC.
See, my problem is I need a recording studio where I can just record myself yelling. That would be that'd be much better.
You'd save your voice, because every time you do that, I'm like, he's gonna lose his voice today. I'm surprised you didn't after Saturday, honestly, because you were definitely yelling
after Saturday. What?
The march, Saturday? The Medicare for All thing. Andrew was there.
Yeah, the March for Medicare for All.
Oh, no. Oh, you were talking about Andrew.
Yeah. No, he was there, and he yelled on the megaphone. He came. He's my little buddy.
I don't think
my organizing buddy.
I don't think.
One thing I will say with news regarding Palestine is the amazing governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, is now calling to sanction Ben and Jerry's.
No. Oh, Ron, you dumb fuck.
Dead. Like, fucking,
I'll show it.
They could just
but Ron DeSantis isn't, and neither are all the other Zionists. You can't show. Can you not show screen clippings as a? Here, I'll just read it.
No, you can,
it
can
says,
share. You should be able to
as you know, Florida has long had a strong relationship with the state of Israel. As a matter of law and principle, the state of Florida does not tolerate discrimination against the state of Israel or the Israeli people, including boycotts and divestments targeting Israel. It has come to my attention that Ben & Jerry's has announced plans to remove its products and prohibit the sale of its ice cream in Judea and Samaria. These actions taken by Ben & Jerry's fall squarely within the prohibited activities defined by Section blah Florida statutes. Ben & Jerry's is a wholly owned subsidiary of Unilever, a publicly traded company in which Florida holds multiple investments. Therefore, I am requesting that the State Board of Administration immediately place Ben & Jerry's and Unilever on the continued examination companies that boycott Israel list and initiate the process to place Ben & Jerry's and, by extension, Unilever on the scrutinized companies that boycott Israel list.
Can you hold on? Can you back up a sentence or two about Florida's holdings in that company? Because that was fucking crazy.
Ben & Jerry's is a wholly owned subsidiary of Unilever, a publicly traded company in which Florida holds multiple investments.
That's fucked. That's literally like that is the definition of fascism. Like, that is fascism. Like, that.
Well, and the fact that they require you.
That is fascism.
And the fact that in Florida they require companies to pledge their allegiance to a genocidal Zionist occupation.
Yeah.
But we're used to it here. The tides are turning in terms of protesting, though. I've been to some huge protests down here for Palestine, and it's literally like touched me so much because
it's really, you're right, it's grown a lot.
Because last summer last summer I went to a Day of Rage action in Broward County that had like a dozen or two people max. And then I come to Wynwood and I see that the numbers are in the thousands in Miami.
Did you all see that there were multiple Olympic athletes who dropped the fuck out of the Olympics because they came up I think it was like somebody in judo or something. Their next matchup was going to be with an Israeli athlete, and they were like, nope. And they dropped out of the Olympics.
Yeah, 2 judo athletes. The first one from Algeria, the second one from Sudan, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was Sudan. But yeah,
I forgot their names, but yeah.
Can you imagine? Like, you work your entire life as an athlete to get to the Olympic Games, and then you get there and you have the integrity. You have integrity enough to stand in solidarity with Palestine. That's, to me, I think that's, as an athlete, I know how much work goes in. I mean, I don't know how much work goes into being an Olympic athlete, but I know how much work goes into being an athlete. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of work, and to reach that level and then to, have the courage to stand in solidarity, that's pretty amazing. I mean,
yeah,
gives me a little bit of hope.
Like, yeah, like if it was me in that situation, I'd be like, man, I'm about to beat the shit.
It would give me like a whole other boost of something,
Yeah,
for real. Yeah, but I thought that was dope. That was pretty amazing to see. So kudos to them. I wish I had their names. I had one pulled up, but I don't know if I have. Here's this guy. Where are you? Okay. So this is the guy from Sudan. And then I don't know if I had the other one. Here, maybe this is it. Nope, that's the same guy. Oh, here it is. Algerian athlete. I'm not even gonna try it. Fethi Noreen, maybe? But yeah. So kudos to them. Kudos to them. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Shout out to judo.
Yeah. That is, I mean, again, I can't imagine having that kind of integrity. That's a lot to ask somebody to step away from the Olympics after working that hard. So it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
All right, dudes. Should we wrap this shit up?
That's it.
My kid is singing at the top of her lungs right now.
Run
the Kathy Vogan thing?
Yeah, the better video with Kathy Vogan. She may send me another one, so I don't know if I'm going to do it. But I might. I probably will.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Glory Jones, do you want to tell everybody what you got coming up on Slow News Day? You guys have like a whole bunch of kick-ass people coming up.
We do. We have Garland Nixon. We have Liz Voss. And that's just for this week. And we just wrapped up an interview with John and Gabriel Shipton. That was really dope of them to come through for that. And then we also afterwards, we also talked about, what was it? We talked about, why am I blanking on this? Oh yeah, Daniel Hale and the Line 3 protests in Minnesota, which are ramping up to the tune of zero coverage from the media. So yeah, just wanted to raise the alarm on that. And yeah, also for updates in Commander X's case, you can follow at @FreeCommanderX_ on Twitter. FreeCommanderX.org is the website. And
when you go to that website, I just went to it off of the Twitter page, and it says it is suspended right now.
Really? FreeCommanderX.org?
Yeah.
Ah, great.
Just so you know.
We're
I was
so
going to tell you after the show,
shadow
but I figured I'll tell you now since it got... That's why I put the
so
Twitter handle in there
shadow
instead
banned,
of the website.
Well, it's Commander X, of course. It's shadow ban. Turds.
We're so
Turds.
shadow banned, y'all.
Yeah. It happens. All right. And you can follow Glory Jones on Twitter. Just type in Glory Jones. She'll come up. She's there.
How many other Glory Joneses do y'all know? Come on, be real.
Not very many. Okay, and I'm Misty. You can follow me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I have another show called Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerowell. We have a bunch of stuff coming up, but I honestly can't think of who. Oh, we are going to interview Matthew Mead from Columbus that we met at the Medicare for All rally. He was very nice, very lovely. I'm excited to talk to him. And a bunch of other people we got coming up. And then tomorrow on Bitch, we're going to be talking about the censorship at the rally that Fee faced and that Pasta faced. So that'll be interesting.
Gatekeeper got what's coming. Inject that shit.
Yeah, right into my veins. Like, I can't stand gatekeepers, and I can't stand, and you know, I don't even. We'll get into it tomorrow. There's gonna be a whole bitch fest about tomorrow, fam. So tune into that 7 p.m. Eastern on Bitch with Comrade Misty. Let's see. Daniel's billboard thing is still going on for the North Carolina billboards. It's in the description if you want to check that out. I'll probably start the fundraiser for the billboard I want to get outside the shoe, our college football stadium, probably within the next couple weeks, so that we have enough to raise the money for October, because I'm going to do the last 4 weeks. Well, the last 4 weeks except for the final week, because the Michigan game we're away. So I'll do the 4 weeks prior to that, because we have 3 home games in that stretch. So I'll probably start the fundraiser up for that, because that billboard does go fast, because it's in a very, very prime location. And I think that's it. I don't know. I don't know. I always feel like I'm forgetting stuff, and I'm sure that I am, but I don't know. Whatever.
We got our rallies in September. 10, 11, 12, and we're going to plan some big, I'm going to try my best to plan some big things, because that is the start of September through basically the whole fucking month, when Julian was facing witness trial at the Old Bailey. So I'm going to try to get a lot of different educational events set up with the stream, probably stream outside of our normal time too. So I look forward to that. I did launch the GoFundMe for it. It is not up yet. It's still pending. It's a Go Get Funding. Sorry, it's not GoFundMe. It's what we use the end of Clover, so I have that going. It will be live for Saturday. It will be up, and I will tweet the link out and send it to everybody. But yeah, I just appreciate everyone. I appreciate you jumping in. I appreciate Kevin Gosztola for hopping on. This turned out to be a really, really cool stream. So thank you very much for everybody, and we will see you on Saturday.